So,
Well, you bring up an interesting point about researching things. I can only do so much research, and someone who is better than me at something will always call me out. And this is why I kind of stick to fantasy, because in some way you're right. It's like a defense. Like it's a fantastical world. Leave me alone for a minute here. But if I was to write like a super hard sci-fi or something like that, and some physicist coming out of the woodworks and is like, well, excuse me, actually, this is not how. I'd be like, damn it, like I just can't defend myself against that.
well, it always bugs me when people are like, well, that's not how it works in space. I'm like, okay, well, have we done it in space yet? No.
And hey, man, welcome to Talk Dirty to Me. How are you today?
Well, thank you.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Merry Christmas Eve.
Yes.
I got my Santa hat if you guys want to get festive, but I don't know if you want to do that right now.
Unfortunately, I'm all about the Yule, so
We tried to get Alex to dress up as Santa from what was it? What's the name of the movie?
I don't know. You're talking about
Rise of the Guardians. So Alex wasn't down for it.
I'm not no Russian Santa, sorry.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Your backstory, your life, and stuff like that.
My whole life. I mean, how long you guys want to be here for? I'm pretty old.
Yeah, just
He does this every time.
I do it
He does
every
this every
time
time.
too. Yeah. Somebody went
Well,
all the way
hey, my
back.
name is.
Somebody went all the way back to their sperm count. So tell us where you want to start.
Well, back in 1989. So yeah, my name is Matt MJ Struven. If you want to sound a little pretentious, I'm a author, podcaster, writer, director now as well. I'm quite good looking, and I'm kind of funny too. But I am taken. Sorry, guys. So I live over in Asheville, North Carolina. Though I do hail from Santa Barbara, California. So a little bit of a beach bum in me, but I like the mountains as well. I got a day job, but I'd love to transition into being a full-time creative someday. And so I guess this is just me like dipping my toes in the water.
Right. That's the same with us too. And so you are a producer. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory for me being a creative. Back in college, I took like a bunch of acting classes, and I've wanted to write ever since I was young, maybe like in high school or something like that. I was like, I want to write a book someday. So I've been dabbling in writing for a while. Actually, side note, shameless plug, I just published my first debut novel just earlier this month, first of the month. So we could talk about that later if you want. But as far as the film itself, or going back to writing and directing rather, I did a bunch of acting and some directing in college. I took like 4 acting classes, and then at the end of the 4th acting class, a bunch of the people were like, hey, let's get together and do something extracurricular. So we ended up writing and producing and acting in two shows all ourselves, had the public come in, had a few hundred people come and watch us on the stage. I love the attention. Look at me, I'm kind of an attention whore. It's kind of fun to get people laughing at me and stuff, in a good way, of course.
Right.
And then, you kind of distance yourself from that. You get into the professional workforce and you kind of forget what it's like to be a creative after a while. And then a couple years ago, maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that, I made some random post on Reddit. And I was like, hey, I'm looking for people local to Asheville who want to, do some filmmaking with me. I haven't done this in a while. I have a little bit of a history and didn't get too many hits. My one was like an extra in a short film, and then it was kind of dead for a while. And then like 6 months later, some guy was like, hey, I came across your post. Do you want to make a film? And I was like, yeah, sure. So we ended up doing a 52-hour film fest, I think it was, over in Johnson City. We worked well together. It was pretty cool. And so he's like, hey, let's work on this other project. I bought this cool sword off Amazon. Do you want to write a script for it? So I did.
That's awesome. And that's something that's posted in the comment or in the description of this. And everybody go check it out, definitely. Do you want to tell everybody how to find you or how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'll shoot you my link tree or something after, but you can find me on YouTube. The Writers Are People 2 podcast. You can find me on Facebook, MJ Struven. I'll shoot you my link tree after, and that's the best way to see a bunch of my content.
Right, and I'll definitely post it. So, yeah, definitely. Really cool. Let's see. What's the most important quality that you have of being a producer?
Most important quality. Well, so let's separate for a second the acting the writing and directing from the producing. So the producing is more putting together the entirety of the film itself, like organizing it. So I actually partnered with Studio Blue Jay on the project. Josh over there, he's super great to work with. Great cinematographer. We can talk a little bit about that as well. But he brought the camera and he was the director of photography. And then I wrote the script and then directed the actors and, called out all the shots and stuff like that. So a little bit of separation there. But as far as producing, we had $1,000 budget for the entire film, which if you're asking anybody who makes films, that's like nothing. That's shoestring.
Right. And
it was like to the point.
The quality is really good too. Wow. That's really good. You guys did really good for that budget. Wow.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
That's
and it's funny because once you start making your shopping list on Amazon, I found these like super sick Templar outfits, like full armor with like swords and all this stuff, and they were like $1,500 each, and I was like, that's not going to cut it, man. That's like more than our whole budget. So I had to like, you know, take it down a notch to get everything in budget. And you know, $1,500 was like including pizza for the whole cast and crew for the shoot. We did the shoot in 4 days total, so it was 2 weekends with 2 days each. It was over. We shot it over in East Tennessee. I don't remember the name of the exact name of the town, but it was some hodunk town in the middle of nowhere. Josh's family had some like 80-acre ranch that we literally just hoof it out there with all our gear and stuff because it stormed the first night and his car got stuck in like 3 feet of mud. So literally the second shoot, we were just like walking out there the whole time carrying all the cameras and stuff. Damn. But as far as producing, you know, it just takes a lot of organization, like a lot more organization than I would have thought. We had spreadsheets of every single scene with the people that were in it, the props that they would need for it, the outfits that they would need for it. And so, yeah, it just takes a lot of organization to be a producer.
Right. How many writers were in on this?
So writers, it was just me. And so Josh kind of came up with the idea, and then we met a couple times on it, but I wrote, 95% of it.
Wow, that's real good, man.
So where did you, other than just the sword prop to start with, what kind of gave you the inspiration to do a Templar Knights video?
So I'm like a fantasy buff. I love medieval things. I love, fantasy, and he's more of a horror guy. So he's got a YouTube as well. Check it out, Studio Blue Jay. He's got a bunch of horror-esque stuff on there. And so we kind of took his vision of horror and my vision of fantasy and kind of intermingled them together. So, I brand it as like a medieval psychological thriller horror kind of thing. It's supposed to give creepy vibes. I wouldn't say it's like strictly horror, but it's also not strictly fantasy. It kind of meets in the middle. So I was trying to write something like dark and psychological. I'm not really super into jump scares. I'm more into like the creepiness of it and the dialogue. And I mean, you guys, was it creepy to you? I don't know.
To me, it was more intriguing. I mean,
yeah,
it's not like you said. It's not jump scare, but it definitely gave you kind of like almost like the Shining vibe almost.
Right. Best explain it. Yeah, it's real good. Yeah.
But I mean, so. I dabble. You're kind of living the dream as far as where I'm sitting. Writer, producer, wants to get more, in the creative business. I've always aspired to do something like that myself out of high school, but always through circumstances been stuck kind of where I'm at doing what I'm doing. Then this knucklehead dragged me into a podcast, and then this is where we're sitting now. But
well, funny side note, because I have a podcast as well. I've realized that podcasts are very few and far between the road to success. Usually you're supposed to have a podcast once you're already successful. And then people are like, oh, we want to go listen to this guy. But I mean, my podcast is super tiny. No one knows who I am. No one gives a shit what I have to say. So, you got to go make yourself successful first, and then people will listen to you.
Yeah.
I told him, all we got to do is drive one of our trash trucks over some celebrity, and we'll get noticed.
Famous. Instant. Definitely.
But yeah, going back real quick to you were saying, you have an aspiration as well to be a creative. I forget who said this, and I'm going to paraphrase it deeply, but they said, if you want to be someone, act like that person would act. And so I was like, I want to be a writer, director, filmmaker someday. So what do writer, director, filmmakers do? I mean, they write and direct and make films. So if I'm sitting in my ass in my room playing video games all day, that's not doing that. You have to get up and make it happen. So if you have the aspiration, take the first step and make it happen.
And Alex does a little bit of our role playing and stuff, right?
Role playing games is not necessarily Dungeons and Dragons is few far in between actually getting out there writing a book or directing a film. Sean.
Well, hey, if you're DMing,
I get that, but
I'm the forever DM in our group usually, so I've been doing it for 20 years.
Like directing.
Directing kindergartners to try to complete a task.
It's a little bit closer than me. We'll say that.
Well, I mean, you do a lot of role playing too, Sean.
Like what?
I mean, you're always my freaking gym bro at the gym, always trying to, play Arnold, you know what I mean?
It's true. Definitely. I guess, yeah. How much planning went into it? How long in the making was this?
So I would say, and these are estimates, I don't know everything directly off the top of my head. I would say it probably took me a month or so to write the script and do revisions and stuff. Josh and I met a couple times to go over it. I mean, if you say meet, we went to the bar and had beers and talked about it briefly. We weren't really in it.
Right.
And then planning, I would say we weren't really rushed. So we were planning for a few months very lightly. We weren't like on super timetables. We were just like, we wanted to not be stressed. So we took our time doing it. But then the actual planning that went into it, hours, we sat down, and the ironic thing is we storyboarded every single scene and every single shot we wanted to do in every scene. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with a scene. I'll just outline you through it. So let's say the beginning scene, right? He's coming down, the Templar is coming down this gully, and so for that, I just wrote, the Templar stumbles down a gully. But then when you're planning out the scene, you're like, you have to have a shot of him far away, and then a shot of him from the left side, a shot of him from the right side. And then, for example, for dialogue scenes, you have an over-the-shoulder shot from each side of both of the actors if it's a two-way dialogue. And then you have a wide shot, maybe have some close-ups. So we wrote down for every single scene, 5 or 6 shots that you wanted to do. But the ironic thing is we spent all this time doing that, and then we got to the set and we didn't even look at it once, because in my head, I just had this vision of this is how I want the flow to go. I knew what I wanted the next shot to be. And then the other thing with that is there's some flexibility. If we're not being super strict by the book, I could just add in a shot. Hey, it'd be super cool if we tried this. So we just threw in tons of different things in the moment that felt right, and I thought it turned out pretty well.
Yeah, it definitely turned out great. Like, really good. Yeah.
Now, did you guys obviously, I'm not sure if you guys are profiting off of this at all, because you guys
Nope.
had a volunteer thing and all that stuff. So I noticed that it was posted on his account for his YouTube channel. Is he verified or anything at all? Like, will these actually get you anywhere? The more people share it, the more people view it, that kind of stuff? Or
Yeah, so I mean, he and I just have a handshake agreement. If he makes profit off of it, we'll discuss what's going to happen. I don't foresee it making any profit, not because I don't believe in it, but just because like it's a small reach. And I told him, I was like, even if we make any profit, I'd love to just take that and make our next film with it. Like, I don't foresee us making a ton of money. But he was the one, he fronted the money for the equipment, obviously, so he deserves to have that on his channel. He's the producer, it's his studio, or the director of photography rather. Plus we had to throw in some music and some sound licenses and stuff that he actually had to purchase. And if I were to put that on my account, YouTube would pull it off because I didn't have the licenses. So it just had to be stuck to his account.
yeah, that was kind of like answering most of my questions all in one. Thanks.
Any more questions, Alex?
Well, I mean, so you're kind of dipping your toes into the directing and cinematography realm. Have you ever thought about maybe applying for like an indie film director position before at all, or no?
It's crossed my mind, but I've never actually taken a step towards it. And I would definitely not be opposed to it. I think the project would have to be a great fit. I'm very interested in science fiction and fantasy and some comedy stuff, but if someone were to come to me with like a very serious drama, I don't know if that would be up my alley. Plus, being the writer for this, I had a very specific vision for the way that the characters were blocked and the delivery of their lines and the way that they had their combat scenes and stuff like that. When I was writing, I had this vision, and it would be very difficult for me to, except in very specific circumstances, to look at someone else's script and then import my own vision to that. Could I do it? Possibly, but I would almost feel bad if I didn't do their script justice or something like that. So I would be very careful taking a project that someone else wrote.
So to kind of put a funny spin on it, you would not want to work on the Halo series then?
Oh, I absolutely would.
So are you actually a fan of what direction they went with that series on Paramount at all, or no?
So I actually have not seen a single episode of the Halo Paramount series. I just played all the video games. Up through Halo 4, I think. So I played 1, 2, 3, ODST, Reach, and Halo 4. I think they have a 5 now. So I kind of lost the franchise a little bit. I really want to sit down and watch the show. I just haven't had time.
I'll just not spoil anything, but I will say production quality, it's great. Costume, great. Script, not so much.
Well,
if you're a true blue Halo fan, oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I've been told my strengths, and you guys can correct me if you think I'm total bullshitting you here, but I've been told my strengths as a writer are in dialogue. Dialogue and character specifically. So I don't know, what did you guys think of the dialogue? Was it too clunky, or did it flow pretty well?
Only nitpick I had was when you were talking about the Templar talking to the priest about the samurai, and I'm like, timelines don't really match here. I'll chalk it up to fantasy.
Did they not? Maybe I did some research incorrectly. I thought they were around the same time, Frizz-ish. Right, I don't know. Right. I'll have to go check that again.
I'm pretty sure the first European to touch a base on Japanese soil was like 1582, and the end of the Templar Order was like 1312. So,
dang it, you're calling me out. I'll have to do better research next time.
But also, we didn't live in that time period, so were they aware of each other? Who knows? I chalk up to fantasy. Just wave that wand, and it's all good.
See, I didn't even know, so it looked great to me.
To be my own defender here for a moment, my own attorney, I kind of said, have you heard, I presume you've heard of the samurai.
Right,
so it's not like
yes.
He was super familiar with them.
Right,
maybe
right,
there were
right,
some
right.
letters, some traders passing along. So, maybe I didn't do too bad. We'll see.
Right. Like I said, that's the one thing about history. It's very subjective to the observer and only from what's recordable. So who's to say that it never did happen at some point in time? Because maybe just because it wasn't recorded doesn't mean it never happened.
Yeah.
So,
well, you bring up an interesting point about researching things. I can only do so much research, and someone who is better than me at something will always call me out. And this is why I kind of stick to fantasy, because in some way you're right. It's like a defense. Like it's a fantastical world. Leave me alone for a minute here. But if I was to write like a super hard sci-fi or something like that, and some physicist coming out of the woodworks and is like, well, excuse me, actually, this is not how. I'd be like, damn it, like I just can't defend myself against that.
Well, it always bugs me when people are like, well, that's not how it works in space. I'm like, okay, well, have we done it in space yet? No, so it's theoretical. So none of it's proven yet. So leave me alone. Unless you have actually got hard evidence of this actually, this is not how a black hole would operate or a wormhole would operate. It's all theoretical, man. Come on now. It's anyone's game at this point. Well, the math is wrong. Well, I don't care about the math. Just because that's how our math is on our world doesn't mean when you go out there and in the big wide open, it's not going to be different. But I don't know. I mean, that's just my take on it. I'm big into fantasy, science fiction fantasy. People always want to wave around the word magic, and it explains everything. It's like the glue, that holds everything together. But it all depends on what kind of genre you're writing for and how critical your audience is, I guess. I mean, everyone gets pulled apart. I mean, the only people that don't get really pulled apart are the big franchises, and they still got all their naysayers, but they got enough money to, silence people,
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting thing about genre and describing fantastic things. So the way I've heard it described is, if the fantastic things in your story are described by magic, then it's a fantasy. And if the fantastic things in your story are described by science and technology, then it's a science fiction.
Yeah. And are you working on any other projects, or is that it for now? What's your plan?
For this particular second, that's kind of all I'm working on. I just published my novel at the beginning of the month. So I was kind of working on that in the interim. I have other projects on my plate, but I'm going to start them in the beginning of the year. I'm just taking like a little reprieve here for a moment.
Right. Hopefully, are they kind of like what you did there, or are they going to be something a little bit different? You going?
So one of them, I've briefly tossed around the idea of another. It's going to be kind of like a quirky, humorous sci-fi with Josh, the guy from Studio Blue Jay, who I did this project on. He actually wants to make it a feature length. So this one is one of his full ideas, but he said he was considering partnering with me on some character and plot and dialogue and stuff like that. I don't want to give away too much of that because we haven't even started the script yet. So that's one possibility. Another thing is I have another book that is, the manuscript is finished, but needs some heavy editing. So that's always another project. It's like 107,000 words right now, so it'll take me some time to edit. The one I just published was like 105,000. Then I actually just started another project earlier in the month before I decided I was going to take a break. This is the life of a creative, man. I just start projects and I never finish them, right? And this one's going to be more of like a sci-fi. It's going to be a book though, but I do want to keep delving more into film. I love writing, but I feel like most people don't have time to sit down and read a book anymore. And I hate to say it, but that's just the truth. And so if I can condense story and character and messages into a 90-minute film, or heck, even a short film, even though there's less money in short films, a film nonetheless, people I think would be more likely to sit and consume the content than if it's a book. Now, there is an audience for books. Of course there is, but I think a wider audience for film.
Alex, so let me ask you this, buddy. When we're sitting here doing these podcasts, or we're at the gym, or we're at work, and you get tired, what do you do?
So normally, my first go-to idea was always drink coffee or go out and get some monsters. So thankfully, Sean turned me on to a new thing known as Dubby. It is a little pouch with ingredients inside. You just take a bottle of water, pre-mix it, and shake the crap out of it, and you got yourself a energy drink that is so easy to use. It takes simply no time at all to get it going. We're going to do this live for you right now.
This is our first taste of this energy drink. We're going to let you guys know. Oh, it is.
As you can see, empty water bottle. Just open my packet. Just gonna pour it in. Make sure you get it all in there too. This stuff is natural, or it has just coffee bean extract. It has no additives or anything like that. It's all pretty good to use. And all you do is put it in with some water.
Shake it up.
The crap out of it. I just spilled most of it on my lap.
Shake the heck out of it. Now, Alex, are you drinking tap water or are you drinking bottled water?
I am using tap water.
Okay.
You are using bottled water, I see, which is probably the smarter way of going about it.
Yes,
But
because there's no
I'm at home
irons
right
or
now, so I
anything.
have access to this nice tap water.
There's no irons or anything like that in this water. So,
Right. All right,
Well, this
cheers,
is
mate.
fine. Al-
I had the cream flavored one, kind of like an orange cream flavored one, and that shit
Pretty
is tight.
yeah, it's really good. You know, it was. You know, I gotta go.
But this stuff here is supposed to help you out. It's not going to have any of that nasty carbonation you're going to get from drinking an energy drink. It's not going to have those highs and lows or those crashes.
Right.
And if you actually use our promo code on their website, you can get a discount. And how much is that, Sean?
10%, and the promo code is Talk Dirty.
Right. And it's at w.gg.
So w.gg. Get
Right.
yours today.
Right. Or audios.
Yeah, I was
Mhm.
gonna say, I'm a big viewer, reader. I don't know what you call it when you're doing audibles.
Listener.
Mhm.
There's a lot of fantasy, sci-fi, fantasy, hard science fiction that most authors that write books, they still do the traditional book prints, but most of their content is mostly sold on Audible or other sites like that, and they actually make a pretty decent amount of money doing that sort of release. So that's something that, because to me, when it comes to Audible books though, or audiobooks, is the person who actually narrates the story for you. As long as you got a good agency, a good publisher, and a good narrator, you're almost guaranteed to have a good book series. If you have a not so great
He has a
narrator,
good voice for narrating the book.
no, I am not doing narration.
Not you.
Oh yeah, no,
Matt definitely
yeah,
has.
Well,
he,
thank
he would be great.
You definitely have the voice for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping by.
Definitely.
But a lot of up-and-coming artists or authors, sorry, my apologies, authors find success on Audible when they get put into a certain publishing bracket, and then they have a certain, there's a really big voice out there right now, like R.C. Bray, who does a lot of audiobooks, and just because he's kind of like tagged in on as a narrator, most of those books sell out all the time, they're all the time selling bestsellers, that might be something that you looked into. I'm not sure what the particulars are. I'm sure that they would probably have to sign you up for it. There'd be a contract, and then certain X, Y, Z goes where. So
Well, I've definitely thought of it, and it's definitely something I want to do. And to your point, Sean, I actually love the sound of my own voice, in case you can't tell, because I won't shut the and so I was thinking about narrating it for myself.
Definitely.
It's just going to be a lot of hard work and a lot of time, and I don't know if I have the right equipment or the editing skills. I mean, if you look at it, like the billing is done for narrations by finished hour. So, hey, I'm going to pay this guy $150 per finished hour, and my book is 10 hours, right? So that's over $1,000 right there. But if you think about it, the time they're putting into it is much more than those finished hours, because they have to do retakes, or, a truck was going by in the background, or they sneezed, or they mispronounced a word, or they read the sentence wrong. So you can spend 100 hours reading a book that only ends up being 10 finished hours or something like that. And then it's already expensive on top of that. So I have to decide if I want to sit my ass down in a chair and for 100 hours and read my book. Maybe I'll find out I don't like the sound of my voice that much. Or if I want to, pony up and pay someone to do it. Or there are royalty plans. I've considered that as well.
Definitely. So what is your day job, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I'm a stripper. No, I'm just kidding.
Magic
That's
Mike,
great.
come on, baby.
No,
You're going to give us a show?
actually, no. I told you not to ask about. No. So I work in tech. I'm head of customer success for a software company. We make software for restoration companies. So if you have like a fire or flood in your house, the company that comes in and fixes it, we make job management software for them.
That's real good. Yeah. I was a network admin for a cable company for a while before I became a trash man. they actually pulled out of our area, and I kind of lost the job. So, yep, was in IT for a little bit too.
I was in retail
Fun
for
job.
most of my life. Sorry. Store manager of a furniture store. I mean, that's my biggest claim to fame.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I don't want people to get stuck in this. This is my job. This is who I am, especially if you have higher dreams. Like, I mean, having aspirations is a very human thing, and I think you should follow your aspirations. It's a common saying, you don't want to get to the end of your life with regrets, right?
Right.
I think even if you are not quote unquote successful by the end of your life, if you tried and gave it your all, you will not have regrets. So,
Right.
like, I mean, I'm going to be successful someday, I hope, right? That's why we're all doing this stuff, right? But even if I'm not and I get to my deathbed, I'm going to be like, I still put in 1,000 hours on my podcast and I wrote 10 books and I have this creativity that's put out for the world to see. And one of my favorite quotes, to paraphrase it, I think it's, writing is an act of ego and we might as well admit it. It's because what's going on in my head is so important. I think I need to put it on the page so everyone else can understand what's going on in my head. I think that's it's the plight of the creative, right? We all feel misunderstood, perhaps. We all feel like we're looking for our tribe, our people, and we're trying to connect with everyone. And so we make art to see who connects with our art because ultimately they're connecting with who we are on the inside.
That's a really good way of looking at it.
Definitely. It's really interesting. Yeah. So, how long have you been wanting to make movies and get into that life? Like, how many years
how
you
many
thought
years
about it?
for movies specifically? I mean,
Well, for the whole writing idea.
yeah, I came up with
anything.
my first idea for a book when I was like a junior or senior in high school. And then, like most authors, you just kind of festers in your head for like a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down to write the first pages. I guess it wasn't a decade. It was like 4 or 5 years later. And I had an interesting experience. I was in college and I would sit in the library between my classes and I'd write on my laptop, right? And I remember I wrote, I don't remember the exact amount, like 50 pages, like single space, 10-point font, just like super dense first draft. And I was like, this is the start of my book. Everyone's going to love it. I'm going to be rich and famous. The chicks are going to dig me. And then I read it again after, and I was like, this sucks. This is so terrible. And I just deleted it. I just deleted the entire thing. And it was so sad. And I just let the ideas sit in my head for like another 4 years or something. And sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes you just need to stew on the ideas for a little bit more and put them more in stone. And also there's something to be said about having more life experience to create characters. The character that I wrote back then was so flat. He's like, I am a good man. I will go and save you from the bad men. That's so flat. No one gives a shit about that. Hopefully the characters that I had in the Templar were a little bit more dynamic. He's someone who's struggling with his sins and wanting to do the right thing but can't do the right thing, and he has his wife and his son that he cares for, and someone who is trying to strive against him in battle. And hopefully it's a deeper character than that. But going back to your original question, when did I really start thinking about that? So I was probably 16, 17 when I came up with the idea, and then in 2014 I was just out of college. Took me a while to get through college. I was probably 23, no, maybe a little bit older than that, 23, 24-ish around there, when I really sat down to write the first real draft of the manuscript that I have not yet published. And I've been working on it more or less since then.
And it's funny because the first draft that you wrote, or the first thing you wrote, people would probably find it interesting. You just, in your mind, thought, this is bad. It's a lot of things, a lot of us
Yeah,
do.
I mean, maybe as to see a progression of my style and voice, I could see that. But what I wrote that is the now draft of that book is completely different.
Right.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
We are generally our worst critics, unfortunately. So,
Like when we got into podcasting, I hated looking at myself, because the program lets you see yourself while you're filming. I hated it. It was the hardest thing. Like I even struggled to ask questions at the start of it. And then finally, I was just like, what's it matter?
Yeah.
just be
Well,
like
the
Shia
funny
LaBeouf.
thing is I can't stop looking at myself. I don't even know what you guys look like. I've just been staring in my eyes this whole time.
What do you got your thing just zoomed in right on yourself?
He's got his full screen, only
you guys
me.
are just voices.
That movie I made. I don't know what the heck they're saying, but
More than people, man.
Yeah, but you're right. We are our own worst critic, and I think that's how we get better. If you
Right.
think your shit don't stink, you're never going to get better.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. Let's see. People are asking questions like crazy over here.
yeah, I've been trying to respond to the chat for you while you were talking.
Somebody said they can't read. Somebody asked you, what about Harry Potter?
I love Harry Potter. I've read all the books, of course. And so the first funny story. So I grew up in a very strict Christian household. And there was this whole thing going around about Harry Potter being of the devil and we weren't allowed to read the books. And so I could get a hold of the first 3 books when I was in elementary school, and I would sneak them and I would read them over and over and over. I read the first 3 books probably 15 to 20 times each. And then I think it was when Order of the Phoenix came out. My mom was like, I was like begging my mom. I was like, please, I want to read these. Like all my friends are reading them. And she's like, okay, I'm going to read them and see if it's okay. And she read them and she's like, oh, these are fine. And so then I was like allowed to do Harry Potter again, but I was like the hugest Harry Potter fan. And then I was finally allowed to actually be a fan after a while.
So when the movies came out, did you like the books better or the movie?
I mean, I think most people will say they like the books better for anything.
Right.
One value I find in movies is sometimes characters, you don't have a good sense for them in the book because they're kind of just a passerby, or like you missed a description, or you just like when you're reading, sometimes things go by you unnoticed. But when you're watching a movie, you see a face. At least for me, I'm really good with faces. You see the face and you can kind of follow that character a little bit better. Or for example, a scene that you maybe didn't understand in the book, it was laid out very well in the movie. And so I think there is value to bringing a film adaptation to a book, even though most people would say books are better because they follow the characters better. They get more into their head and their emotions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of mixed on that, but a lot of people do say books are better. Somebody asked, why can't you use AI voices? Alex answered it in the chat because AI is terrible. Like, it's the worst. But just to answer somebody's question.
Well, my opinion on that, I don't think AI voices are good enough right now by any means. I think in general, AI as a creator is just a mimicker. It's not very good at having the soul of what it takes to be creative. Now, God forbid in the next 10 years that might happen, because I won't have a job and I won't ever be rich and famous if AI takes my damn job. But going specifically to voices, I actually toyed around with it for a little bit. I put in a couple chapters to listen to it, and it just lacked the inflection that I needed to get my characterization and dialogue across well. It did okay, but it was just rather flat. And I was like, no, there needs to be more emotion in that. And I could just do a better job because I wrote it.
Right. And Riverside, uses... Oh, sorry, Alex. Riverside uses your own voice, as you know, when you do the AI filter in Riverside. And it's just terrible. I tried to use it once, and I was like, oh, this is just trash.
Sorry to cut you off. Since we're on the subject of AI, I think there was a Disney movie that just came out. I can't remember what it was called. It was kind of like I don't know, to me, some of the Disney projects are kind of like crappy budget or good budget, But there is this one movie that a lot of people claimed was AI generated, like from the characters to the scenery to like how things played out, and they never fessed up to it at all. But a lot of people, I guess, did a lot of research on it, or whatever, and were using ChatGPT to kind of recreate the movie, and it was almost word for word like a replica of what was already put on, Disney.
What movie was it?
I wish I had some good memory.
It's fully possible that big studios and or government has access to things that are, 10, 15 years in the future that the general public does. Completely possible. But I don't see the ability for things that are on the market currently that I have access to really create like a full movie. Like I saw a pretty compelling short, maybe like a minute long, done by AI, but even then you could tell it wasn't perfect. It's on the horizon for sure, but I don't think we're quite there yet for the public.
Like so much breaks in it. Like there's so many breaks in the.
Yeah,
right. We definitely know that the military and government are definitely ahead of us because they're already flying AI helicopters right now. So
I'm gonna have to buy one of those.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be able to for another 10, 15 years.
AI helicopter, that'd be great. Yeah, it's definitely coming, but it's not good. I mean, for my use of AI, I didn't like it.
Well, I mean,
and like I said.
We made a song off of it one time for our show, and that kind of
it was it was funny. It was definitely funny.
I told you I would sing it for us, but
Well, I mean, be my guest, please. I want to hear.
Well, I don't. My mother told no.
Alex's real name is Trash Viking, so.
Well, that's my TikTok handle.
Yeah, he got rid of that.
Got rid of it. I can fix that real quick.
He used to say that in there, but
We're just
Kind
two
of
clowns on a podcast. That's what this
Definitely, yeah.
show should have been called. It says it should have been two clowns in a truck. You know.
Hey, if you're having fun, that's all that matters, right?
Right. We started it to interview trash guys, but I don't know if I told you the story of it. It just didn't. It's not panning out for trash. So
I mean, you briefly mentioned that. You're like, we want to interview trash people. And I was like, are you saying that I'm a trash person? Like, what the fuck does that mean?
actually a trash.
Garbage
Literally-
people, right?
garbage
Is that the
people,
correct term?
yes,
Okay.
Yes,
correct,
yes.
Are you calling me garbage?
Well,
Yeah,
you
he
can't even
came
see us
on.
right now, so how would you know?
Do you even know what we look like? That's great. Yeah, but
No, our original vision for the podcast was to do waste industry. You know, kind of shine a light more onto the ins and out of like what goes on. You know, because you always get your trash collected every week. You know, you don't think about where it goes, where it comes. You know, who the guy picking it up is, or gal. You know, no judgment, or cat, person, or whatever you go by.
today's
But
day
you
and
know,
age.
it was kind of more to shine a light on that. But the problem is, like, we don't have any funding other than what we're putting into it. So we don't have any sponsorships. We don't have any agency to we're working for to try to produce this or anything. So trying to convince larger companies or even individuals to come onto the podcast to interview or even showcase is just such a hurdle that we weren't expecting at the first. So we kind of just started branching out. He went on to a couple of Facebook groups, and I think that's how he met you. And we're just kind of just branching out now to, trying to say talk dirty to me is more about encompassing about like talking dirty about all the little secrets that people don't know about, like, bringing more light to what people don't really often consider, when they're watching a movie, for instance, what goes into that kind of work. Because most people, they'll go see a movie at the theater. Oh yeah, it was good, it was bad, whatever. But they don't think about how many man hours go into something like that, or why like, these big time celebrities like, RDJ are getting paid millions of dollars to appear in a movie when they're like, well, he's only an actor. Like he's not actually doing anything, but they don't do, you know what I'm saying? Like they don't think how many man hours go into sitting in makeup, costume, dialoguing, retakes, reshoots, all that time.
Learning your
spent away.
lines when you're not on set.
Right.
Right. Was that a problem for you, for the
So-
people that you were casting?
So for me as an actor, it wasn't ever really a problem back in the day. Now I haven't acted in probably a decade by now, probably more than that. And I used to do stage acting, and it's actually stage acting for me was a very adrenaline filled experience because I would spend hours learning my lines, and you get on stage in front of like 200-300 people and you're like, here's my line. And you're in your head, the guy's talking like, I don't know what my next line is. Oh, fuck, what's my next line? And then he finishes and your mouth just opens and your next line comes out. You're like, yes, okay, I don't know my next line. And so you're just always living on the edge, and your body kind of takes over in this weird, like muscle memory almost. Now, that was for me. I'm sure there are people that are perhaps more talented and gifted than I am. I used to have a great memory for memorizing I used to memorize long monologues from Shakespeare. I memorized like The Raven. I remember like Lord of the Rings stuff. Like I love memorizing long poems and stuff. But again, that was a long time ago. Now, for actors in this film, all the actors were great. And you never know what you're going to get because we found all the actors off just like random people off the internet. We'd never met any of them before. One guy was like driving 6 hours from Kentucky or something like that to come out every weekend. Like we just didn't know what we were going to get. And everybody showed up on time, and more or less everybody was prepared. And they were all volunteers. And we had some crazy stuff going on in the shoot. There was like a thunderstorm one night where, the car got stuck in 3 feet of mud. We were all huddled under a tent and the fire was going out, and we were supposed to be shooting a scene that night. We all had hundreds of bug bites all over us because we were like in a field full of cow patties. There was like ticks crawling all over us, and like we had some ranchers drive up one time and yell at us that we were going to kill their cows. It was just like a crazy shoot overall. But everyone was super great and generous with their time. Again, we paid them in pizza, and I guess now they're going to be famous. But that's pretty good too.
Well, if you're ever in the New York area, you got 2 actors right here that'll help you out.
Perfect.
Yeah. What?
He wants to do only shirtless scenes.
What?
I'm only there for Viking scenes, so
Guess I'm doing shirtless scenes now. We need to go by a beach or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to branch out and make more films someday. I'm always looking to collaborate with people. So yeah, if anybody wants to collaborate on a film or something like that, you think I'd be a great writer, director, hit me up. Even if you think you just want me to sit there and watch you and judge you, like I'll come and do that. I love just being part of the process.
The interviewing process. Everybody that's in our chat right now, they failed. They're talking about AI and stuff. But yeah,
Already losing the battle.
yeah, it's definitely really cool, man. That movie was pretty intriguing, man. So,
Oh, I'm glad you
Is
liked
there a part 2 in the future, maybe?
right.
it. Well, I mean, probably not of that specifically, though the idea of making it into a feature length has been tossed around. We would need to find investors in a budget
Mm-hmm.
to make that happen, but I'm not opposed to that. I would have to rewrite the entire script and change a bunch of things around, but I kind of like that idea, but probably no sequel, just a feature length.
Okay. Little side ADHD thought for a second. What are your thoughts and feelings on the Writers Guild from Hollywood?
I think that it is. So I know they were on strike a little while ago last year. I don't know what happened with that. I'm assuming they're no longer on strike because I haven't heard anything. So I'm assuming they came to an agreement. I don't know. I'm not part of the Writers Guild of America. Maybe someday. But I mean, I think it's necessary to have a guild like that to protect yourself from the bigwigs in the industry. And I think that one thing that's often not thought about is these studios and these producers, these executives, they have all the money. And that's how movies get made. But that's only part of it. You need the creativity with it as well. And so I think a lot of those bigwig executives are hoping that AI will come in and undercut, so to speak, the costs of having a writer. But I'm still not confident that AI can produce the creativity and characterization that a human writer can produce. So my thoughts on the WGA, I think it's necessary to protect writers right now from people who don't necessarily have their best interests at heart. And writers, creators have the power because those people are not creatives, or else they would be creatives. They're the money guys.
That's kind of like a segue where I was trying to lead to is like, I'm not sure, you mentioned video games like Skyrim and stuff like that. Obviously you played Halo, and I don't know if you looked into any of the recent news about like AAA games, the amount of time that game developers have to go through, not the actual studio itself, but the employees of the studio working 90-hour work weeks to just produce a game within the time frame. That for one hampers their creativity, but also like they're not getting paid for many of the hours, and they're not really protected from that kind of abuse. Where you would think a guild or association would probably help them out with that. I think it would be kind of interesting because you're talking about storyboarding, which is a big process for video game development too. Doing the whole storyboarding of a scene. So it's almost like directing a movie, if I'm imagining it right. But they gotta lay out the groundwork for everything, and then they gotta go through the dialogue for characters if it's an RPG game, so on and so forth. And a lot of writers kind of like dip into both sides of the pool. They're authors for writing a book. They're also like a game developer, dialogue creator, storyboarder, that sort of thing. So you kind of get like a dual nature or a couple different professions out of one thing, which is just being a creative, like you're saying. So,
and I would, if anyone's listening that has an opening for a video game narrative designer, let me know, because I would love to get into narrative design for video games. I've had that on my bucket list for a long time as well. Kind of cross-referencing video games with AI for a second here. One thing that I do think AI can do right now, which I'm not opposed to, is bringing lifelike and infinite conversation to video game characters. Like, for example, think if you're playing GTA and you roll up next to the mailman and you have a conversation with him. Because I've already seen, I think it's beta, maybe it's actually in production right now, I'm not sure, but like a beta test where you have your microphone and you talk into the game, and there's an AI that listens to your voice, and then that character has a conversation with you based on whatever you're talking about. I think that's cool, how you can just have infinite conversations with infinite people in the game at that point. I think that's a great use for AI.
I think there's a couple of games that are already kind of doing the procedurally generated stuff. I think like No Man's Sky did a lot of that in their games, and I can't remember the one really big one where they had these infinite amount of worlds you could travel. It's a spacefaring game.
So No Man's Sky was that. I never played No Man's Sky, but I know, like you said, it's procedurally generated. I actually played a game for VR that I have, and it's called Elite Dangerous. And
that's
it's
what I'm thinking about. Yes.
That game. So you don't really, I don't think you really land on planets per se. I put like 40 hours into it, and I was never very good at it because it was so difficult to fly this freaking ship. Like there was a control for everything. Like you had to put your landing gear down, and it was incredibly fun though. Like because you're in VR. And then you look down and you see your body in front of you inside this cockpit, and you can see your arms on the controls, and you're controlling this ship during a dogfight. And you can literally look behind you and see the ship following you while you're flying in your cockpit because you're in VR. Like, it was just a surreal, amazing experience. And then also, like, I think what you were referring to was the size of the galaxy was to scale or something like that. And so you literally had to, like, aim at the planet you wanted to go to and then, like, go exponentials of light speed or whatever their unit of travel there was. I don't remember exactly. But it was just such an immersive game that I did love that.
I'm gonna have to get VR. Like, that sounds really cool, man.
It's super fun. Yeah, and it's
Right.
pretty affordable now too. Like,
is.
I have this HTC Vive. I actually have an HTC Vive and an Oculus Rift. So I have two different VR headsets. I guess I'm a
Right.
real big nerd. But yeah, tons of
Shout out.
really immersive games coming out in VR.
I just have PlayStation and Xbox.
And you got a PC. Don't lie.
I do got
You
it.
play Farming Simulator.
Hey. Nobody needs to know that. Why do you tell everybody that?
Because you're a gamer too, right? Farmer Sean over here.
I mean, you can get VR for PlayStation as well, I believe.
Right. You can. Yeah. I was looking at the Media Quest actually. I kept thinking about getting it. I was like, I'm gonna get it. I was like, nah, I don't want to spend the money. It's still on my head though. So definitely. So when filming the production, what kind of cameras did you use? Because I mean, it's
I
very
couldn't
good
tell
quality.
you. It was Josh's camera. I could get the information for you if you want, but the tech is just over my head.
Oh,
I wasn't even allowed to touch it. One time I was like, should I move this for you? He's like, don't touch my camera. I was like, sorry, dude.
Well, it probably costs
For
them
what-
quite a bit of money because most of those
Yeah.
Yeah.
filming or cameras cost quite a bit of money. I mean, it's not like the 90s. You get your old camcorder handheld
Right.
and you're doing
Mhm.
stuff for your iPhone or whatever.
So my understanding of it, and I could be completely wrong, but my understanding was that it was about $5,000 for his setup, which, I mean, for the quality, I think is great.
It
Because, I
came
mean,
out
you can
great.
spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this. Now, the flip side to that is you can still go out and shoot a compelling video with an iPhone.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
there's multiple ways to look at it. Obviously, we had sound to look at as well. You're not going to get great sound quality like we had off of an iPhone because we had someone with a boom mic standing off
Okay.
like
That was
to capture everything, and then he spliced it all together. And his blessed editing skills, I'll tell you, that guy, he spent tons of time on editing. But yeah, $5,000 I think for his
It's really good quality. It's definitely HD and really, really good quality. I mean, I've seen people make like shorts before on YouTube and stuff, and they were nowhere near that good. So definitely really good quality. How much CGI went into it?
0.
Zero. That's all 100%. Wow.
So
That's
he did some like color editing specifically on the last scene, but other than that, I mean, no CGI or anything.
That's really good.
CGI takes a long time to do.
It does. So how long did it actually take you guys to film that?
So it was 2 days and for 2 weekends. So 4 days total. So it was Saturday, Sunday, and then the next weekend, Saturday, Sunday.
So you guys produced a 25-minute video end product. How much actual footage? So you say it's like 4 days, but it's a lot of time obviously setting up and shooting. How many hours went into actually filming it versus how much you ended up cutting out and editing?
Like,
and
how much
getting it
raw
done?
footage did we have?
Yes.
Right.
I could not tell you exactly. My guess was 4 to 5 hours of raw footage.
That's about what I was
Which it
expecting.
doesn't sound like that much when you think it's over 4 days, but like you said, you have to walk to this spot, you have to set up, you have to, say action, then you cut it, and then you like move around and you do the other. So it's like the time definitely is stretched out. I mean, they were long shooting days. We would get there, I think every Saturday we were there at like 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. and we didn't finish until like 7 or 8. And then on the Sundays we were there from 12 to 10. So it was 10 to 12 hour shooting days every day.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot.
Now,
Wow.
I'm not sure if you're a big fan of the Mandalorian at all, Matt, but have you
Watched the
ever
first
saw
season,
how have you ever saw how they actually shoot most of their scenes?
I have not.
So they have this giant dome that they actually do a built-in landscape, and then everything else in the background is all CGI.
Hmm.
Like the entire 360-degree view is CGI, and they shoot inside this dome. I mean, that's why every episode was like $20 million to actually produce. I mean, I could only imagine having that kind of budget and money. But like, what kind of fun am I going to have today?
Yeah.
You know,
I would have made a feature length for 20 mil. Trust me.
right? But I'm seeing like the production costs for a lot of these modern TV shows, and like, oh yeah, it's like $10 million for this episode, $5 million for that. I'm like, you could do a whole movie off of this stuff. Like, why are we doing all this? I mean, and again, you're getting mostly CGI. I'm a big practical effects kind of fan. Like, I'm a big 80s action practical effects. I want to see a car explode. I don't want to see it CGI explode.
Right.
And it's
Right,
cheaper. I mean,
Yeah,
but
I'm the same way. I think that's why I like your guys' short there that you guys have. So
Yeah, everything was done with makeup, basically. We had someone who came and did the makeup, and then when the blood was running down, he had like a sponge, and he was like, oh, and the blood was coming out. And so I thought that was kind of cool.
it was really good. Yeah, definitely more realistic than CGI.
sorry, just looking at what the chat's saying.
Yeah, me too. It's Disney.
Oh, I'm not interesting enough for you? All right, whatever.
No,
I
thought they were asking you questions.
How about you ask some questions, man? I mean, come on, this is your podcast too now, right?
Matt took
Welcome
over.
to my podcast.
You
Where
said
Matt talks dirty to Sean.
what? What?
That's the name of the podcast, right?
I thought we weren't going into. Wow.
I didn't ask about 13 inches. Inside joke.
Look, we already have inside jokes. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely it.
Welcome
I
to the
mean-
cult. We do signings on Sundays.
That's probably what they thought was going on when you guys were making that film. They probably all thought you guys were out there like starting a cult or something. Because I mean, you see a lot of people in night outfits and stuff. I was like, what?
That brings
Yeah,
me
it
back to
was funny to run across those ranchers. Like they came up and they were like, "You're gonna kill our cows if you leave trash around. They're expensive head of cattle," and like yelling at us, and you're messing up the grass and all this stuff. I was like, "All right, man. Like, sorry, we're just trying to make a film here. Like, we're not trying to kill your cows."
well, I mean, welcome to Kentucky, right? or
That was actually shot in Tennessee, but still, you know.
okay. Kentucky, Tennessee, they're like right there. Sorry, guys.
It's really cool though, man.
Also,
Wow.
sorry, I told you I'd get you my link tray. I forgot to give that to you. I just popped it into the Riverside chat here.
Oh, okay.
He's Mr. Technical over here. I'm just a face. So,
All right. A pretty face nonetheless.
Oh well, thank you. Wait, hold on a second. I'm not.
Definitely. I don't know.
No. I mean, it was definitely a very well thought out film. I mean, because I've seen a lot of like high school production videos on YouTube. I've seen some college production videos on YouTube, and one of my favorite YouTube movies. I'm not sure what kind of budget they ever had, but it was called Bucketheads. It was like a Star Wars stormtrooper film. So it was actually a pretty interesting one. I think this was before or during the Disney acquisition of Star Wars, so they kind of got away with doing it, as long as they couldn't make a profit off it. I guess they were allowed to shoot it. But they had some pretty good animation in it. I mean, they had CGI. Obviously, it's Star Wars, science fiction. They had to have a little bit of blaster effects. It's just nice to see that people can still produce movies without having to rely on bigger studios to fund them for things, and a lot of indie films. So I haven't really been much in the indie film market myself, but I have seen a few indie films here and there, and people just need to understand there's a different quality of filming when you go from big budget to low budget or no budget. But where I'm sitting at for you guys, they came out fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Definitely did.
Yeah, if we had, $100,000 budget or something, I would have loved to make like a feature film. Obviously, if you want big name actors and stuff, you got to get a bigger budget. But you bring up an interesting point about like budget versus and creativity. I fully expect to be making content for a while still, whatever it is, even if I have to pay out of my pocket. That being said, I think I will be able to make more content and higher quality content if I can get sponsors and stuff like that. So it's that next step. I want to do it because I love it, but I think the quality and the reach will increase with that larger budget.
People want to know, what do you think about Marvel and DC? Or Mike wants to know, what do you think about Marvel?
So what about specifically, like which one's better?
Yeah. Which one do you prefer?
If you would have asked me when I was a kid, I think I'm going to go with Marvel. I think, I had my Superman phase, but overall, Spider-Man was my favorite when I was younger. I like the Iron Man character portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. now. I think Marvel's done a bit better with their universe in the long run than DC has.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Me and Alex talk about this a lot, actually. I actually like DC at first. Because the first Batman was the best Batman, with Michael Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, we always get it wrong. But I mean, they're way off topic. They're nowhere, they're not even on the same page anymore. Like, you don't know where they're going with their story. Where Marvel, you know where they're going. I mean, they're so on top of what they're doing compared to DC.
Well,
So
when you're in DC's universe and you're doing a remake every 3 to 5 years, it's kind of hard to keep a story going. You know.
It's definitely. And then they should keep some of the actors in DC from the TV shows and run them in the movies, and they don't. They always find new actors for the movies, so you kind of make it, where Marvel actually uses the actors from the movies in their TV shows. So, I mean, that was my
And
thoughts
I've
behind it.
never been a huge comic book reader. I know bits and pieces of some stuff. But I feel like Marvel has such a bigger universe with so many more characters than DC has, which leads to lots of interesting interactions. I can name a few on DC, I can name way more on Marvel. Probably still not as many as like a true nerd,
Right. Somebody that's really into it.
Just like filming, there's different grades of nerd,
But yeah, definitely. Hopefully that answered your question, Mike. But yeah, Anything else, Alex?
I mean, it's been a thrill having you on. I might have to cut it short a little bit because I got to pick my kid up from his friend's house. But other than that, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on and showing us your helmet display. I'm still trying to figure out what your poster says in the background there.
Sorry, with the what is?
What your poster in the background says.
Oh, that's I used to play rugby for many years. That's
Okay.
one of my old rugby jerseys.
Because like from where I'm sitting on my low quality laptop, I really can't make.
Oh yeah, and Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, there he goes.
There we go. Hold, let me get my glitter bomb out real quick and put it in my beard.
You gotta talk in Russian. You gotta talk like a Russian now.
We don't support Russia here. Not on this podcast.
The motherland, vodka, need some vodka.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Sorry, I'd be more Swedish. No kind beer.
Yep. Definitely.
Hey guys, I appreciate you having me on. That was a great talk.
Oh yeah,
thank you.
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely,
and
man.
definitely have you back on if you ever wanted to come back on.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
really interesting.
Chat about my book next time. You guys will have to read it. It's a little,
Oh, yeah.
little longer to
Send-
read than a 25-minute film, but
Send it to us.
Audio only, man. Like, I gotta put it through a chat GPT system so I can hear it say ridiculous. So because I can't say
Unless you wanna
ridiculous, it
read
says reduck.
Do you want to read it for him?
I mean, I would love to do it someday. We'll see.
There you go, Alex. He'll hook you up someday.
I actually still do read paperback books. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, you're the one asking
Well, yeah,
for
I'll connect
audio.
with you guys. Maybe I'll get you a free copy if you leave me an Amazon review or something.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shoot.
Man,
Yeah,
I'm always interested in
definitely.
something like that.
Or
And also,
send
if
us
you want us to plug you in, make sure you
Right,
send your links over to him so you can
send
plug
your
you
Amazon link to it. I'll post it right now.
Yeah, it's on my link tree. If you look on my link tree, I got Amazon up there, and then I got, let's see, what else I have on link tree? Mailing list, if you want to get my mailing list. Arduous Productions, that's the film that we have on there right now, as well as a couple trailers. If you don't have time for the whole film, just check out the trailer. It's like a minute long. If you don't have time for a minute trailer, you need to fix your life a little bit. I'll just say that. And then, my podcast, Writers Are People 2 podcast, and if any authors or anything want to come on and chat with me, let me know.
I got it. I just opened it up. I forgot that I had to maximize Riverside to see it. But yeah, definitely if you want to come back on, you're definitely more than welcome to. We're going to end it here, and everybody have a good night. And
Bye-bye.
enjoy your Christmas.
Have a Merry
Christmas,
Christmas.
everybody.
You guys too.